Welcome to the 2015 Annual Employee Training. This section consists of information from the Human Resources Department, including harassment, technology, and leave policies. So any person who believes that he or she has not received equal employment opportunities should report the alleged discrimination to one of the division's compliance officers, hopefully within 15 days of the occurrence. You may use the report of discrimination form, or you may report this orally, or any other written report will be accepted. The compliance officers are listed here: Billy K. Wingfield and Jeff Apt. The prohibition against harassment and retaliation policy is listed here. It is a violation for any school personnel to tolerate harassment based on a student or an employee's sex, gender, race, color, national origin, disability, religion, ancestry, age, marital status, or genetic information, or any other characteristic protected by law, or based on a belief that such characteristic exists at school or any school-sponsored activity by students, school personnel, or third parties participating in, observing, or otherwise engaged in school-sponsored activities. Examples of conduct which might fall under harassment: unwelcome sexual physical contact, graffiti containing racially offensive language, name-calling, jokes, or rumors, written or graphic images which are based on a person's race, hostile acts which are based on another's religion. Any student, school personnel, or employment applicant who believes they have been subjected to prohibited harassment or any other form of discrimination needs to repeat this offense, hopefully within 15 days, to the principal or to one of the compliance officers listed by using a form, orally, or in any other written report. Sexual harassment: a form of sexual discrimination that involves unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature, when submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly as a term or condition of a person's job, pay, or career, or submission to or rejection of such conduct is used as a basis for career or employment decisions affecting that person, or such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. It's best to remember this behavior is unwanted, unwelcome, is sexual or related to the sex or gender of the person, is generally offensive, and is repeated unless it's a severe offense. Some examples of unwanted verbal or physical behaviors that create a hostile work environment: sharing sexually inappropriate images or videos, sending suggestive letters, notes, or emails, telling lewd jokes or sharing sexual anecdotes, making inappropriate sexual gestures, asking sexual questions, making sexual comments, inappropriate touching, including pinching, patting, rubbing, or purposefully brushing up against another person. These are all considered hostile and should not occur. If they do occur, you need to file a complaint using the relevant employee grievance procedure. You can make this to the division's compliance officers, and they are Jeff Apt and Billy K. Wingfield, our Executive Director of Student and Administrative Support Services and the Director of Human Resources. So can you identify which of the following is considered a hostile environment? Scenario 1. There's an office at work that's pretty hectic. People occasionally swear at each other, call each other names, and make catcalls and comments at each other. Most of the workers participate. but a few seem uncomfortable. What do you think? This is a hostile environment in the making. The supervisor has to stop the behaviors. No one is allowed to feel uncomfortable while they're at work. Scenario 2. One of the organization's best workers has approached you with a problem. She's being hit on by her department supervisor, but when she doesn't want you, a school administrator, to do anything, she just wants it on record that she told someone. She's handling the situation and just asks that you promise not to discuss the matter with anyone. What would you do? Once it's reported, it has to be investigated. Even though she said she was going to handle it, it's still something that needs to be handled by the Human Resources Department. An administrator can promise that he or she will try to keep the investigation as confidential as possible, but he or she cannot promise complete confidentiality. Scenario 3. One worker checks personal email at work and occasionally opens mail from friends that contains pornographic pictures. She shuts them down quickly and no one has complained of seeing one. What do you think? Eventually, someone will see one of those pictures and be offended. Furthermore, it is a violation of the acceptable use agreement. Anti-bullying. It is the goal of Manassas City Schools to provide a work and school environment free from all forms of bullying, harassment, and/or intimidation. This includes the bullying of any person while on school property, at school-sponsored or school-related activities, and the bullying through the use of electronic technology. Any employee who engages in bullying behavior or fails to report observed behavior involving employees or students will be subject to disciplinary action, which may include dismissal. So this right here is important, failing to report. If you see something, you are required to report it. What is bullying? Any aggressive and unwanted behavior that is intended to harm, intimidate, or humiliate the victim, involves a real or perceived power imbalance between the aggressor or aggressors and victim, and is repeated over time or causes severe emotional trauma. Some examples: spreading malicious rumors, gossip, or innuendo that is not true, excluding or isolating someone socially, undermining or deliberately impeding a person's work, physically abusing or threatening abuse, withholding necessary information or purposefully giving the wrong information, belittling a person's opinions, tampering with a person's personal belongings or work equipment, making jokes that are obviously offensive by spoken word or email, intruding on a person's privacy by pestering, spying, or stalking. And I think in addition, oops, not a good circle, sorry about that. Spreading things that are not true is an example of bullying. But I think if you spread information, even if it is true, that can be perceived as harmful if it's private and someone told you this in confidence, it's definitely creating a hostile work environment. So we should avoid that as well. So what falls under the bullying and harassment? It can happen verbally. It can happen through electronic communication, such as cyberbullying. It can also be a physical act or gesture based on any actual or perceived differentiating characteristics, such as race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender identity and expression, socioeconomic status, academic status, physical appearance, or mental, physical, developmental, or sensory disability, or by association with an individual or a group who has or is perceived to have one or more of such characteristics. So if you belong to an outside organization that has been found to participate in bullying or discriminatory practices, if you continue to be a part of that group, you can fall under this category. Bullying does not include ordinary teasing, horseplay, an argument, or peer conflict. These are things that aren't ongoing and can usually be resolved with the help of a mediator. Complaint procedure. Anyone who believes they've been the victim of bullying must report it to the building principal or one of the division compliance officers. Again, preferably within 15 days. It can also be given orally in writing or on the division bullying form. The compliance officers again are Jeff Apt and Billy K. Wingfield. Additional prohibited behaviors. Behavior that is not unlawful or doesn't rise to the level of illegal harassment or retaliation may still be unacceptable for the educational environment. Demeaning or otherwise harmful actions are prohibited, particularly if directed at personal characteristics, including but not limited to socioeconomic level, sexual orientation, or perceived sexual orientation. The acceptable computer system use policy. All uses of the division's computer system, hardware, software, data lines, devices, printers, anything we have, tablets, any cell phones if you receive any, all use must be in support of education or research and for legitimate school business. It is a privilege to use these items. It's not a right. Any communication or material generated using our computer system can be subject to be monitored, read, and or archived. Manassas City Schools uses the following provisions to monitor the system: internet filtering software and desktop security software. The acceptable computer use agreement. Each employee, student, and parent guardian of each student shall sign the acceptable computer system use agreement before using the division's computer system. The failure to follow the terms of the agreement, the policy, or accompanying regulation may result in loss of computer system privileges, disciplinary action, and/or appropriate legal action. Users may not use or share passwords and IDs other than those assigned to them. You may not reveal your passwords to anyone without prior approval. You may not access portions of the internet that don't promote the educational mission or administrative functions of Manassas City Schools during regular working hours. Privately owned computers may not be connected to Manassas City network without written authorization from the supervisor of administrative technology. Users are prohibited from wastefully using resources, saving exceptionally large files, for example, on the shared drive. And copyrighted software shall not be downloaded from the internet or further transmitted in any form without compliance with all terms of a pre-authorized licensing agreement. Similar to copyright, you don't want to violate that. School web pages, names and/or pictures of students may be posted with parental permission. Text and/or graphics may not be posted if they are discriminatory, if they portray nudity or sexuality, if they cause disruption of school activities, if they're created by another user and you didn't have consent, or if they represent personal views and portraying it as the school board or administration views. An employee is expected to notify the responsible administrator or supervisor who will determine if any policies, guidelines, rules, or regulations have been violated. Telecommunications, the phone lines, faxes. You should refrain from making and receiving excessive personal calls. And you should not disclose a voicemail password to another employee or a student or attempt to disclose or discover another employee's voicemail password. Use of tobacco is prohibited in any form on school property. This includes cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, snuff, chewing tobacco, and all other kinds and forms of tobacco prepared as to be suitable for chewing, smoking, or both. And smoking is defined as carrying or holding any lighted pipe, cigar, or cigarette of any kind, or any other lighted smoking equipment, or the lighting, inhaling, or exhaling of smoke from any of those objects. If you coach or supervise before or after school, you are prohibited from using tobacco products in the presence of any students. On to FMLA. You are entitled to up to 12 weeks of job protected leave for the following reasons: incapacity due to pregnancy, prenatal medical care, or childbirth, to care for a child after birth or placement of adoption or foster care, to care for your spouse, son, daughter, or parent who has a serious health condition, or for any serious health condition you have that makes you unable to perform your job. There are also eligibility guidelines if you have a spouse, son, daughter, or parent on active duty in the National Guard or Reserves. You may use leave for any of these items. FMLA also includes up to 26 weeks of leave to care for a covered service member during a single 12-month period. Any covered service member is a member of the armed forces, including the National Guard or Reserves, and they obtained a serious injury or illness incurred in the line of duty. So you can take leave to support their medical treatment, recuperation therapy, outpatient status support, or if they're on the temporary disability retired list. You are eligible for FMLA if you've worked here for at least 1 year and have worked 1,250 hours over the previous 12 months. A serious health condition is defined here as an illness, injury, impairment, or physical or mental condition that involves either an overnight stay in a medical care facility or continuing treatment by a health care provider for a condition that either prevents you from performing the functions of your job or prevents a qualified family member from participating in daily life activities. Continuing treatment may be met by a period of incapacity of more than 3 consecutive calendar days, combined with at least 2 visits to a healthcare provider, or 1 visit and a regimen of continuing treatment or incapacity due to pregnancy or a chronic health condition. And other conditions may meet this definition. If in doubt, simply call the Human Resources Department and they can better answer your questions. Notice requirements. Employees should provide 30 days advance notice when foreseeable and when practical. And the employer will notify you within 5 days if you meet the criteria. Any further information, contact the HR department. Any unlawful manufacture, distribution, dispensing, possession, or use of a controlled substance policy is detailed here. You may not unlawfully manufacture, distribute, dispense, or possess a controlled substance, marijuana, anabolic steroids, any of that on school property or at any school activity or on any school-sponsored trip. It is a condition of employment that you will not engage in such prohibited conduct, and you will notify the school board of any criminal drug activity for a violation occurring on school property, at any school activity, or on any school-sponsored trip no later than 5 days after such conviction. Child abuse and neglect. Who must report child abuse and neglect? Every employee in Manassas City Schools is a mandated reporter. If you suspect anything, you are required to report it. How do you do this? The easiest thing to do is to talk about it with your principal or with the school counselor, or the school nurse is another good option. You are free to also call social services on your own and make that report. It is good practice, though, to let the principal and school counselor and nurse know, because there is paperwork associated with every report made to CPS. And you are required by law to report it within 24 hours. That's key. What if you're not sure it's reportable? Report it anyway. It's not our job to judge, it's our job to report. We let CPS investigate and see if it's warranted. Code of Virginia protects you. If you make a CPS report in good faith, then you are not liable for criminal or civil liability. Now, if you did it with malicious intent, then you would be liable, but of course you wouldn't do that. If you really had a concern about a child, you would absolutely make that report. There is a penalty for failure to report. You can be fined for $500 for the first incident and $1,000 for any subsequent incidents. And failure to report acts of rape, sodomy, or anything like that results in being charged with a Class 1 misdemeanor. All of those incidents are referred to the local Commonwealth's attorney. We will hope we don't have to deal with any of those cases this year. Staff attendance and leave. Satisfactory attendance is a minimum expectation for all employees. All employees must also enter their leave in the ASOP system. You may do that via telephone or internet. And advance notice needs to be considered. The earlier you put in ASOP, the easier it is to find a substitute. So the school cutoff time for Hayden is 7:05 a.m. But let me tell you, at 7 o'clock, you're not going to have an easy time finding a substitute. So please make every effort. If you're not feeling well the night before, just put it in. It's better to put it in, stay home and rest, than to come in and then not have a sub and be exposing everybody around you to any potential illness. If you miss the cutoff window, so if you come in and it's after 7:05 a.m., you'll have to have Patty or Nika help you enter it. For any advanced ASOP requests, however, you should be entering your own absence. Use of personal leave will not be approved unless there are extenuating reasons during the following periods: the first 10 instructional days and the last 10 instructional days, any professional development or teacher work days, any days before or after a local, state, or national holiday or scheduled break as established and announced by the school board and/or the superintendent designee. So this would include Veterans Day, any of our professional development teacher work days, before or after Thanksgiving, the winter holiday, Martin Luther King Day, etc. And there might be critical days designated by the superintendent. To request personal leave during those restricted periods, because occasionally there are extenuating reasons and things that come up, you forward a signed, written, detailed statement that identifies the extenuating reasons justifying your request to the principal, that would be me, and then I will forward it to the Director of Human Resources at least 30 days prior to the date the requested leave will begin. Final confirmation is subject to the superintendent's approval. Personal leave will no longer be accrued from year to year. All unused personal leave will convert to sick leave on June 30th of each year. Thank you so much for your attention during this slide presentation. Be sure to complete the mini quiz and acknowledgement form for credit. Thank you.